Now we have the next delegatee, Mr. A.Nasar Ahmed. He is an entrepreneur. Mr. Nasar had been involved with students' movement in the 70s and 80s. He is also the General Secretary of Madras Development Society. Now, I shall request him to give you the speech.
Dear Chairman Thiru.A.Nasar, Dr. Swaminathan, Mr. Beda, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen. Being one of the last speakers, most of the things I wanted to talk have been spoken. Please pardon my repetition. At the outset,
on behalf of the Madras Education Trust,
at the outset, let us congratulate ourselves, not only because we are all part of United Nations, but are civilized enough to allow this institution to survive 50 long years. At the same time, let us wish that this world body sustains as long as the earth lasts. 50 years ago, the teeming millions of this planet Earth founded an institution dedicated to the cause of world peace and human development. In these past 50 years, this institution has witnessed prosperity and poverty, sanity and insanity, dominance and subjugation, friendship and enmity, valor and timidity, freedom and bondage, compassion and arrogance, destruction and construction, finally war and peace. This institution has survived these phases remarkably. The achievements are substantial, if not spectacular. But not everyone is happy. At times, this world body has crossed the limitations of compromise in order to survive. This has raised the very basic question, how long can this be tolerated? Does this institution stand for certain principles governing the very existence of human race or not? Let us not forget, institutions stand for uncompromising principles, the pillars of a civilized society. Ironically and consequentially, the birth of this institution is due to a world war. This is World War II. Appalled by the destruction and apprehending another world war, a body was created for the conduct of the nations. This was done by a group of 52 nations only. Today, there are 189 nations. In 1945, after the Second World War, the victors presented a charter endorsed by only one-third of today's UN. The balance neither took part in the formulations nor in its endorsement. Since then, the world has changed. The objectives have been broadened. From a mere security provider to human development, UN has transcended many barriers. We have to admit that UN was founded for the conduct of nations on a broad framework only to avert another world war. There was no ideological or philosophical base. But the constant changes since then in the political, social climate all over the world has shifted the focus to justice and human development. With more and more interactions among nations and transparency, the world is certainly heading for one international community, and the UN is close to the establishment of a parliament of humankind. This is despite the shortcomings. But if the shortcomings are allowed as they are today, the process of building this institution would be either delayed or jeopardized. In the minds of developing world, who constitute the majority in population in area, there always remains a threat from powerful nations who have plundered wealth and the might of nuclear arsenal. The insensitivity and double standards of the economically and militarily developed nations having the so-called civilized society is shocking. They have the veto powers and the ability to mute the voices of the developing nations through the Security Council. So much so that the performance of the Security Council is the most dismal among all other organs of the UN. Let us not forget the lessons from the failure of League of Nations. Some superpowers are manipulating the UN to give legitimacy for their crimes. This is the most serious threat and can undermine the very existence of UN. Meanwhile, the functional agencies of UN, the Food and Agriculture Organization, World Health Organization, UN International Children's Emergency Fund, UN High Commissioner for Refugees, International Meteorological Organization, International Civil Aviation Organization, UNCTAD, UNDP, and all others have done credible job and have given respect to UN and solace to the millions of people in the developing world. In fact, the UN has been able to reach the people of this world only through these agencies. Also, contribution in some areas like decolonization, abolition of apartheid, though it took 48 long years, environmental and human rights issues have raised the respectability and given credence to UN's role in maintaining justice. So, we find whenever and wherever the UN is not dominated by the former and present superpowers, it has done a satisfactory job. In the current scenario, many other nations have developed economical and military clout and have the moral authority to stake claim for equal rights in Security Council. If this is denied, a fair, just, and democratic function is denied to the world people. The past are lessons, the present is trepidation, and the future is a great expectation. Today, the UN is looked at by the developing countries as a forum rendering justice. This is a monumental task. In order to achieve this, it must become the UN of the people, by the people, and for the people of this world that exists for justice for all. Thank you.